But I loved the yard that I grew up in, the orchard and the garden and the backyard. And while there was work associated with it, it was a great place. And my parents had provided plenty of place for me to have fun and plenty of ways for me to have fun.
My dad always felt like our recreation should be homemade. There were several recreational things in our yard and our home that were like that, that they invited my siblings' friends home to us rather than send us other places. We had a ping pong.
When I was young, we cut out of plywood a backboard and put it on our garage. At that house we had a double car garage. It wasn't one door, it was two single car entrances, but it had a double driveway. So I remember working with him to build a backboard, and he bought a basketball hoop and put it on the backboard. And that became the neighborhood basketball court because it was such a relatively large driveway. I've gone back now and it seems it's much smaller to me, but at the time it was huge. And we used to have basketball games that would go on for hours there with the friends. So Dad provided that.
We had a basketball hoop installed in our driveway, and the whole neighborhood played basketball every day for hours in our driveway, which was a great blessing because my mother knew always where my brother was. And she also knew what kind of language was going on in our driveway. And she was really stiff about if you didn't use the right kind of language, you left our driveway. And it was wonderful.
My father worked with me and built I want to say a go-kart, but it was I couldn't understand what we were doing when we were building it, but he had actually built one as a boy, and so he knew what he wanted to do. And it was pretty simple, and it had four wheels and a seat to sit on, and you would guide it with your feet. So there was a triangular piece where you could move your feet with the boards and guide the cart, and it had to be pushed. It wasn't self-propelled. So you had to have someone with a stick pushing the cart from behind. But it was neat. I mean, we had many hours of fun with that that he essentially built for me.
Dad built a ping pong table that we had in the backyard and on the back porch. And I remember playing ping pong all summer long.
I really got interested as I got older in pole vaulting and high jumping. We had an older boy who lived down the street named Bill DeVries, who lived at the corner of Cross and Gramercy. And he had built a pole vault pit and had pole vaulting standards. And I remember being so fascinated watching him pole vault. So I got interested in high jumping, and I wanted to do the same thing with a high jumping pit. My dad basically helped me build a pit that we filled with sawdust. And he bought some simple high jumping standards and a bar for me to use to put in the orchard. And I remember spending hours practicing high jumping in that pit.
Yeah. Tetherball. We had a tetherball post that he made. We played a lot. And he painted a hopscotch for me on the back porch that I used and used and used.
We had a little shed behind the garage where he would putter and fix things.
Yeah.
And make things like that.
The other thing I remember about the orchard was we had so much milkweed. We had lots of monarch butterflies, and they would, lay eggs there, and then the caterpillars would hatch, and we'd watch them, and we'd put them in bottles and look, and then they'd spin the chrysalis. And so we'd see this gorgeous turquoise chrysalis with a very thin gold ring around the top, and we'd watch, and the butterfly would come out, and we'd, wait and open the jar, and then the butterfly would sort of crawl out, and its wings would dry, and then it would go flying off. And I loved monarchs. I never see butterflies anymore. In our childhood, they were everywhere. And Mother made a butterfly net, And he'd catch these butterflies, and then of course they'd put alcohol and like chloroform and put pins in them. And as children, we thought this was exciting. As an adult, I thought, this is terrible. And then I found out, the more I studied about butterflies, their lifespan is like 2 or 3 weeks, so it's okay.
And we would have homemade ice cream when we'd invite friends over. Mother did the majority of the work, but we all helped in turning it. And then we had standards he put together for volleyball and horseshoes. He always liked horseshoes. This is all in the back, so we always had plenty of things to do besides climb the trees and a swing set, and we played tag and games like that outside. So it was a fun place to have friends.
Some people in our ward, maybe one or two people had boats and water skis and snow skis. We didn't have the money to do any of that, but I remember the basketball playing, the high jumping, playing football on our side lawn. We had a big enough yard that oftentimes the neighborhood kids would come to play. So I have many happy memories of playing at home, football, basketball, badminton in the backyard, volleyball in the backyard, the high jumping with the high jumping pit in the back.
But really happy memories of playing in the yard in the irrigation
Yes,
water.
yes.
It was really fun, and it was once a week. You could go have fun in the water. Yeah. Yeah, you let it soak in your yard, and while it's soaking, great fun to have all the kids go out and
Yes.
play in the water. I mean, it was so
One
much
of those
fun. Suddenly
pictures
you
has
have
the
a
kids
flooded
playing in
yard.
the water that's in that.
Yeah. And when you were little, the water went up to your knees, and when you were bigger,
Yes.
it was still fun. And you just play. It was
When we were really little, Dad would take us swimming. We went to Lava Hot Springs, we went to Crystal Springs, both north of Ogden, and then we would go down to Lagoon. And Lagoon had the most fabulous, huge outdoor pools. They were so much fun. And there were no water slides, as I recall, or there may have been one, but they weren't like the water slides now. They were much more simple. But, you know, he was a lifeguard, so we had a wonderful time playing around and splashing with him.
We played games with the family. Another game we played that the family loved was Pit. Do you remember?
Yeah.
We'd get around the table, and Dad especially. You know, you'd say corner on rye and corner on wheat, and you'd try to trade the cards.
oats.
Yeah, see, yeah.
Or
Oats,
rye, yeah.
and then somebody would trade with you in order to get the hand that you wanted. I particularly remember Dad getting a lot of delight out of that.
Yeah.
We had lots of traditions, and it's hard to remember what they were because they were just things that we did. We always celebrated holidays by working first, usually a project in the yard, and then we'd usually have a wonderful meal or a picnic and homemade ice cream and play games and have fun together. So the day was always filled with work and play. And we usually had family. We had lots of extended family that came.
We didn't have a TV, and all of our friends would make fun of us because we didn't. Until, wow.
We didn't have a television until I was 16, so Helen Mar would have been, 13? Marianne and Marsley would never have had a television at home when they were growing up. And there were televisions there. I used to go on Saturday nights to my next door neighbor to watch Gunsmoke because we didn't have a TV.
And
But
my parents said we don't need one, and we didn't need one. And I remember watching TV at friends' houses, but not a lot.
Dad bought a TV for Mother in 1967. She had a hysterectomy and she was recuperating, and all of us were away from home, and I think they finally thought it was finally safe to buy a TV so it didn't corrupt their children's minds and their kids would read. I was in France. Mother was recuperating, and we could hardly believe it. Oh, he got a TV. I'm so grateful that we didn't have a TV. At the time I wasn't.
And we didn't have television. That was sort of a choice when the first time TV came out, we didn't get it, and then Dad said, I wonder if we should have it. So we sat down and had a family talk about it, and of course he wasn't terribly interested in getting it, but by that time we were all busy with music lessons and school, and we didn't really have much time, so we decided not to get it. Then when President Kennedy died, Dad rented it for a week, feeling that we shouldn't miss that. And we all watched the funeral, but no one turned it on during the week. We were busy doing other things, and so I watched sometimes when I babysat, but otherwise we grew up without television.
Well, my father was active in community things. And so
He was very active in Kiwanis, and he was president several times, I think. And then every summer they would have Kiwanis Party. The Kiwanis Party was up in the canyon, and it was a big deal. It was for all the children. And I remember you could have as much of anything you wanted. So if you wanted more than one soda pop, you could do that. I could never get through more than a root beer, and the bubbles would go up my nose. But they would have pennies in the sawdust. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
And they would throw out this huge thing of sawdust, and pennies were hidden in them. And then they'd let all the kids, like under 8, scramble around and find pennies. Oh, that was so exciting. And you got to keep the pennies that you found.
And they would put pennies and nickels and dimes, and the kids at the different ages, you know, all the 5-year-olds would get in and see what money they could find. I remember that. But my dad and mother loved to go dancing. They belonged to a ballroom dance club called the Debonaires, and once a month they would go out and go dancing. He would dress in his black tuxedo, and she would wear beautiful long dresses. They both looked very elegant to us children.
And that was wonderful. They met monthly and were in charge of the dance. And then after that year, they served a year, and they kept together as a study group, and they were wonderful people from all over the city. I think there were 8 couples. But I loved seeing Mother and Dad get ready for the dance every month. She wore a formal, she was tired of it, it was old, but it was beautiful. She had made it, and it was an iridescent, I don't know how to even describe the colors.
More peach.
Peach, right.
And tangerine, kind of. But if you can think of a combination.
With iridescent
It
colors
was iridescent.
inside.
It was a beautiful piece of
gorgeous.
fabric. Yeah.
And it fit her beautifully with covered buttons and a swirling skirt, and Dad had a tux. And they were beautiful dancers. And it was a terrific night, and it was fun for us to watch them go. And I got to help with refreshments one time when they were in charge, so I got to see them dance, and it was wonderful. And then Dad would dance with us at daddy-daughter date. He liked to do the 2-step, but when we did the actual waltz, which we had to do, we had to count to get the steps right. So we usually won the waltz, but we'd have to sing 1, 2, reach step, 1, 2, reach step. I think they always danced. Scottish people dance. I think they danced as families, they danced when they were young, they danced at reunions. I remember wonderful family McAllister reunions. I'm sure they danced in school. I can't imagine them other than always dancing.